From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 26th. I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday, of course. This is the holiday weekend still, but we are now stepping closer toward the magical time of winter, right, where everybody gets excited about cold and snow. There was originally a storm signal that we had right around the end of the month. That is not going to materialize. Storm signals are just favorable periods for something to develop. Not necessarily a guarantee for snow. Once we get closer, those storm signals turn into actual storms in our long range, and that particular one did not do so. However, we did introduce a new one this week, and we'll talk about that in today's video, and also look at the long range pattern. That's not going to be what you were told if you looked at the super long range outlooks. There's a reason I don't do seasonal outlooks, and it's because there's so much intra-seasonal variability, and I think they're a joke. I think they're a waste of time. They're literally flip a coin, and you can think you know what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden you don't. Like, for example, blowtorch December. Not happening, folks. Not happening, okay? I was expected to be very warm in the month of December. If you read those winter outlooks in, all the way up until this earlier this month already, they were still saying that. It's not going to happen. Not happening. Actually, just last week I saw a few that were still saying that, which is pretty incredible. But that is not going to be likely to be the case here for the month of December. Also, we're looking at no snow through the end of 2023. That also is going to be false, I think. And then we'll talk about that here in today's video. First and foremost, the My Pocket Meteorologist program has started. It started actually on November 1st, but you're going to want to get in on this for the text alerts and the premium form. Don't wait till the last minute to sign up, folks, because I have, it might delay the processing of your order, and if there's any issues with it, you want to get this now before the snow starts, not when the snowstorm's about to hit and everybody's signing up right away. I understand that's what happens every year, but if you can, from a logistical standpoint, it does us a big favor. We still have to manually approve the orders, and if there's so many coming in that we're overwhelmed, it's going to be tough. So these are for the winter text alerts. That's what you get at this link, and there's actually a scrolling bar in the video above my video presentation here. It's in yellow. You'll see it scrolling on there. We'll have continually scroll throughout the video and show you that address, so you don't have to remember what this address is. This is for the text alerts and the premium form, okay? So starting off the long range with the, as the first slide look we do every single week. This is what the long range I did on Friday. It is a pretty chilly outlook overall. If you look at the entire month, it's not warm at all. A lot of these purples and blues indicating at least slightly below average temperatures, and then the purple, of course, is below. There is a period in here that you're going to have a transient, milder, slightly above average, but very slightly above average period right in here toward the end of the first week of December. But then we're kind of near average for several days. Then we go back to near to slightly below or below average after that for the remainder of December, especially the second half of December. I don't see anything that is indicating to me that we're going to be anything even remotely close to resembling a blowtorch in December. I haven't seen it for months now. Now we go, I'll say 2 months, because we do a 5 to 6 week long range lead every week, and that's what I limit the long range to on purpose, because beyond that, it's literally flipping a coin. No disrespect to anybody that does this and attempts the seasonal outlooks, but you really can't predict intra-seasonal variability, and in this case, most are going to be incorrect with the December warmth forecast, because I don't see that. As a matter of fact, we have for the entire month of December near to slightly below average, 0 to -1 is the temperature, or 0 to -2, I'm sorry, 0 to -2 is the temperature projection for the month of December as a whole. So that's going to be cooler than average at most locations. And we also have near average snowfall for the month of December. That's right, not no snow like you've been told. I do think we're going to get into some snow events as we get into December. And here's what average November, December snow is. It's not really that much in November. So if you haven't gotten any snow, which you haven't so far this year, it's not that big of a deal, because they're not really expecting too much in the month of November anyway. Every once in a while you'll get some snow in November, and it adds to this and makes this climatological average what it is. But when you get to December, there's a notable increase in that. Now, the last couple Decembers, we haven't had much. In some cases, nothing at all. We have had blowtorch Decembers with some, Christmases that were near 70 degrees. It was crazy. But I don't think you're dealing with that this year. I just don't. And here is what we have snow so far. This will be updated every single week as we get snow events actually producing something. We haven't yet. So there's still zeros across the board. Our major climate stations, of course, is below average. Now, everywhere in our region, normal snowfall is now measurable. So Atlantic City and Philadelphia popped up this week and went from 0 last week to 0.1. So you're on the board of what normal should be to this point, but it's still, these are minor amounts. In most cases, less than an inch until you get up in our northern areas. Now, in Surrey and Wilkes-Barre, you're supposed to have 3.1 year to date. That includes October and November to this point, and you've had nothing. But this is not a large number to make up, certainly, going forward. And I do think there's opportunities for that in the month of December to at least get back to near average. Okay, here's what we have for our, and so again, this is updated every single Monday, so I don't have the new data that comes out on Monday morning, but this is what we had from last Monday, and this is updated from the previous Weather Weeklies video we did last week. So we did see more of a balancing effect here. Temperatures are very close to each other region-wide. It's still warmest in Nino 3 across the board, and that's true this morning too. When I look at the latest values, it's still the warmest in this area, so it's still technically very slightly east-based. It's not weighted heavily to the east, and I think some people are confusing that when I put a post on Twitter about that this past week. It's not heavily east-based near the Peruvian coast, where it's the warmest anomalies in the equatorial eastern Pacific. There specifically, it's not there, but east of the date line certainly is where the best warmth is, and at least relative to average, and we are seeing those western regions warm up a little bit. This is something that I projected would be a trend going into the month of December, and we are seeing an increase in that region right now, because you can see these temperatures. These are actual sea surface temperature anomalies, and this is obviously along the equator going all the way across the globe. This is the warmest temperatures you'll see, but it's still quite warm. Even in the eastern areas right here, you can see this is your Nino regions, and it's quite warm. It's getting closer to a basin-wide event. It's not quite there yet, but it's close. There's a little bit of a head fake this week because we had a wind burst at 850 millibars moving westward across these regions, and that will in turn allow the spreading out, so to speak, of warmth and increase in warmth, at least temporarily. And we did see that here in the last 15 days where you see an increase in temperatures in those same regions. So you did see the values come up, and I do expect once we get to Monday, those values will come up above 2 degrees Celsius, which will make this solidly a strong Nino. So there's no... this is a temporary thing, though. This is a temporary thing. The westerly wind burst is not a permanent effect. It's an effect that creates and promotes warming in these regions on a temporary time scale. Once the wind burst is gone, then it goes back to where it was before, and that's going to be a steady decline, we think. Why do I think that? Well, we finally have the model projections for the month of November, and here's where we are right here. This is where we are. You are here, okay, right in here. That's where you are, okay? And look how it is. From here, it's leveling out, which is what it's expected to do now. I think you're going to be peaking in this month of December, early December or mid-December, whatever that may be. But then we're going to slowly start declining. See that? We are slowly declining after that. And El Nino is not going to be as strong as we get to the back half of winter as it would be starting out, okay? So it will be a strong Nino when it gets at where we are right now, this point right here, early December. I don't know we quite get to Super Nino territory. If we do so, it's going to be as a result of this westerly wind burst I spoke of, and it's going to be very early December, and then quickly, then it's going to be going back to a regular strong El Nino. The strong part doesn't really matter as much as the placement of these best anomalies across the equatorial eastern Pacific as far as our sensible weather. Now, I will say one thing that I know some of you follow Joe Bastardi, meteorologist, used to be from AccuWeather, now he's at Weather Bell. He's been there many years, a very smart guy, was talking about the reason why we're not seeing the effects of El Nino that you would expect with this kind of configuration. Normally, you would expect, okay, maybe. We're looking at this at arm's length and saying, okay, well, we should be warm in December. Typically, you are. And I showed some 500 millibar anomalies for the month of December when you have this kind of look across the Pacific. The problem isn't here, and it's not able to couple and have that temperature contrast because the northern Pacific is also very warm. This is usually a cold pole here with big sea, big cold pool. There's no cold water up there. It's warm, so you're not getting a contrast between one and the other, and that's allowing for this our pattern not to behave as much with the El Nino influence as normal. So it's not behaving as normal as you would expect it to. So when you're doing this on an intraseasonal basis like I do, you can see these kind of things, and you can say, well, I don't think it's going to have the effect people think it is for the month of December, and it's not going to be a blowtorch. It's not going to be +2 to +4 degrees Fahrenheit as an average temperature in the month of December. It's probably going to be near, if not slightly below, and that's exactly what we have, okay? So you can see these kind of things on an intraseasonal basis when you do this, not only every Friday in the long range. I'm reiterating that point here in video format on Sundays, but I do it again in the forum every Monday and Wednesday, so I'm constantly on this, okay? This is not something that's you just put a forecast out in the beginning of a season and let it ride and hope for the best, okay? That's what a lot of guys do. I do this for a living, so this is something I look at constantly. And I do think we're going to decline with El Nino as we go through the month of, maybe later in December already, but probably January, February, March. Once we get through that period, we'll have the El Nino slowly decline a little bit. And some of these years that had our best blocking, I want to bring up blocking here because this is a big part of the conversation this week if you are a weather follower, enthusiast, that kind of thing. Some of our biggest blocking years have been these two most recent years, and now they were in a moderate El Nino, but those were both good blocking years that saw snowfall in December a little bit, at least, but more so in the back half. This had blocking that year. This one did too, but they were mostly later in winter where we had some big storms as a result of that. This one you can kind of put that in that category too because you have that one big storm in 2016. January is late January. But this whole idea here is revolved around blocking. Going into this season, I thought there was a really good chance because the negative quasi-biennial oscillation was rather weak. There would be an opportunity for more blocking episodes, more stratospheric polar vortex interruptions than normal. Okay, these are all things that could happen as a result of the background state and the equatorial winds, the trade winds at the equator, above the equator. So there's a lot of things going on with this that would lead to me thinking that you're going to have more blocking. Not only that, we had a lot of blocking episodes in the fall. So it's sometimes when you look at the pattern that already happened or is happening, patterns are hard to break sometimes, and they're very stubborn. So when you're looking at that and you're looking at the fall and you're saying, wow, there's a lot of blocking that happened over Greenland here in the fall, that could somehow tip his hand for what's to come in winter beyond that. And that's something we've paid attention to. We're starting to see that a little bit because we have, and I'm going to stop this image as soon as I get on it because this is gonna loop here. Okay, so this is the trough coming in next week. We are going to be cold early next week, Tuesday especially. Tuesday, you're knocking out of the 30s. It's going to be really cold. This is a very deep shot of cold air. But what this is generally, what this is called is a cyclonic wave break, okay? So there was no blocking over Greenland. Here's Greenland right here. I'm going to outline it, okay? There's Greenland. There was no blocking over Greenland prior to that. This is not your typical blocking pattern where you can see it coming from like a positive Scandinavian ridge or something transversing the Atlantic and ending up in over Greenland after a week or two, and you can see it coming for that length of time. This is something that just pops up as a result of things going on around it. Okay, so this place basically has a squeeze play between you got a trough out here, you got a trough out here, and you got a deep trough cutting underneath this. So it forces a ridge into Greenland that wasn't expected to be there the week before. This is the intraseasonal stuff I'm talking about. You can't just assume that what you projected a week prior is going to maintain for the week ahead. That doesn't work that way. So when you put this in motion, I think the loop's going to start over again. Yeah, it is. Okay, watch. Cyclonic wave break. It forces the NAO in Greenland. Then you have another one wrapping around it here that's going to reinforce right on the 5th or 6th. Reinforce it, make it more of a negative NAO. So there is a chance there once the NAO relaxes that you can get storms in that situation, okay? A blocking pattern is basically that. It blocks up the pattern, okay, and it keeps cold underneath it. And that's usually, deeper into winter, it can be a slam dunk forecast for cold and big storms and snow and that kind of stuff, all right? If that's what you're into, you usually root for blocking, okay? Here's what it looks like graphically in the paper. Now, it does, you do have this blocking coming in, as shown when it first comes in. It comes in subtly, and it's about 2 to 3 standard deviations below what average is, so this is definitely negative. And it has this dip here, and it starts to recover a little bit, and then it gets reinforced. When it reinforces is when it becomes west-based, okay? The time it reinforces is right around that second trough that's coming in around the 5th and 6th of December. After that, the NAO relaxes a little bit, heads back toward neutral. A lot of times when you have the NAO relaxing and heading toward neutral, you can get some bigger storms in there. Now, when I did the long range on Friday, none of these ensembles were in range for the storm signal period yet. And people are like, how are you putting a storm signal there when the models aren't even in range? I don't use models. I do, but I use them to collaborate ideas that I've already come up with, okay? So this is why I came up with this idea. You have a relaxing NAO, relaxing AO, Arctic oscillation, around the same time. So we put a storm signal in the December 7th and 9th time frame, and now we're just going to look to the models and see if they agree, see if they pop something. And they will sometimes do this last minute because we are in seasonal transition. The models are not going to be spot on with their advanced long-range forecast right now because we are in seasonal transition, and models typically struggle during seasonal transition. They either rush the pattern changes, they indicate boatloads of snow that isn't going to be there, indicate nothing at all, then all of a sudden, whoa, where'd that storm come from? This is the kind of stuff that happens this time of year, especially the month leading up to Christmas, which is basically where we are right now, okay? So that's the period I want to watch just on teleconnections, because if the NAO is rising in that time period, and it might not be necessarily the 7th and 9th time frame, it might be more like 8th to 10th or something. It's going to be around there. I think there's a storm signal there, and we have to continue to monitor that going forward because you have the blocking relaxing at that point. And also not forecast well by the models is the stratospheric PV. Last week we were looking at this, and it looked like this was going to be a strong PV and eventually start to decline with time, right? Look what it did with the update this week. It is now tanking. Okay, now it is still, it's a weaker polar vortex, but it's now, and it's still going like this, but it didn't have this last week, or it had this huge drop. It missed it completely. This is something that the models completely missed it, and it's because of that seasonal transition. So this could just add to the argument that you're going to have a more susceptible, a stratospheric polar vortex is more susceptible to splits, displacements, stretching, that kind of thing, that could help bleed cold air into the lower latitudes. Is going to change temperature forecast entirely. This is an interseasonal thing as well, okay? And when you're looking at this from a graphical standpoint, if you have a stable and strong polar vortex that keeps the cold air maintained and consolidated near the Arctic Circle, north of the Arctic Circle, near the polar regions. If it is weaker, it is more susceptible to splits, displacements, which allows cold air to spill southward into the lower 48 and the mid-latitudes. So that's why this is going to become important down the line. I don't see it yet. I know this is weakening significantly. This is very strong, near record strong territory, actually, and now it's not. It's going to take a hit, it looks like, here in early December. Again, this is a model forecast, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But just don't discount. People are being very definitive. This is the problem I have. Other forecasters that are out there are saying certain things, and they're being very if A then B. It doesn't work like that. This is a probability-based thing, and you can come up with your theories and your arguments. You can't say it's definitely going to do this, because then it's going to burn you. It's going to burn you every time. So now we're going to project. And if we're seeing that it's not going to happen that way, then we will adjust, okay? But so far, so good for a while now with the long-range outlooks. I haven't had to adjust many things very much, and if it is, it's very, very minor. So by taking it on an intra-seasonal basis like we do, it makes it easier for me to do that. If I'm doing a whole 3, 4, 5 months outlook, good luck. That's tough. Okay, now, speaking of that, the early season... or the storm signal I'm talking about, the storm signal I had between the 7th and 9th. This is the GFS extended snowfall, accumulated snowfall between the 6th and the 11th. Now, I don't think anything you're going to have here prior to the 6th at all you're going to have. There's going to be very little, if any, snowfall prior to that, because we're going to have that milder period I talked about. They're going to be near average for a couple days, and then you go to slightly below. But you have no snow generally up until, except for the far northern regions. But then the ensembles are picking up on at system rate in that time period that I spoke of. This is closer to the 9th, 10th, 11th time frame, and you're getting at least some snowfall. Again, climatologically favored areas. This now would include the I-78 corridor and points north, but further south, they're still probably too early for you there, but it's still showing a signal here. This is a blend of the ensembles, all of them, Okay, so it's still indicating something's there. So there's something to watch in that time frame. I'm not like thinking this is going to be a huge storm, but there is the possibility for at least some accumulating snowfall to get off the schneid here, which we are on right now across the region. Okay, GFS extended now through late December has basically near average snowfall, or at least making up for lost time and getting to near average across our region. This goes through, actually, this goes through the 29th of December. So there's a total snowfall between, we can basically say the 6th of December all the way through the 29th. And it has a near average snowfall. Shocking. That's what we have, too. And if you look at the Euro Weeklies, it has the same thing. Near average is about this. Actually, it might be a little bit higher than that. But for argument's sake, we'll say we can expect a near average snowfall in December across the region. Not necessarily blockbuster stuff. And if you want my personal opinion, and again, I like to stick to 5 to 6 weeks for a reason in terms of a lead time. But looking at how this is progressing in comparison with other El Ninos in the past that have produced, it looks like it's going to be, if you have that, hit that January 15th through February 28th period, I think you're going to have some wild, a couple wild storms in there, probably a big one in there too, especially in February. All right, so I think you're going to have a back half of winter that people are going to like. If you're a snow lover, if you're not, you're going to be wanting to hide under your covers for a month until that's over with. But it does look like you're going to have a pretty active southern jet and plenty of cold air to tap into. And I think we will have a back half of winter that's going to be pretty above average. So I do think this winter is as a whole is going to be at least slightly above average in terms of snowfall. Again, going against the grain of what many people have told you in some of these outlooks. But here is the other thing we're looking at on an intra-seasonal basis, the Madden-Julian oscillation. No real change from last week. We still have convection out here that is in the Pacific. I don't know why this stopped. There we go. The convection that's out here is mainly just east of the best convection along the equator is mainly just east of the international dateline, which is a phase 1. That's where we are right here, phase 1. It is or phase 2. I'm sorry. The effects of this are actually from phase 1. So this is going to end up going through very briefly into phase 3. We think, just like we projected last week, cut through the circle of death and then reemerge on the other side here in phase 7 or 8. That wouldn't be until later in the month of December. So this has not really changed. This is dictating intraseasonal patterns as well. So this will help guide the forecast for that month on a month-to-month basis, okay? Not seasonal as much, but this is more shorter term over the next couple of weeks rather than looking at 3 months in advance. And you can see that here on the chart. That convection is sitting out here, which is the best convection of near the equator in the equatorial regions is right in that area. So that is why it's east of the dateline. The dateline actually is sitting out here by where it says phase 8. This is where the international dateline is. It's kind of like right here. Okay, so the best convection is out here. It's phase 1-ish. So it's looking like that's what it's doing right now. Okay, that's where the best convection is. And the whole idea is the latent heat release process is from this convection actually makes the jet stream do this. Okay, that's what we're doing. Okay, so what goes up must come down is a latent heat release process, and that's why it's so important where this best convection is. We will get into this on an intraseasonal basis when we get closer and have more storms to look at, but right now this is kind of the same thing we had last week, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I just wanted to explain that, all the things you were told before, like, blow torch December, probably not happening. No snow before the end of the year, or very little. Probably not happening, okay? I think we're going to make up for time here in December. Not a blockbuster month, and I have that here in our summary. So I'll go into that. Near to slightly below average temperatures forecast is maintained in December. They're not a blowtorch. I'm talking about December here. December may not feature blockbuster snow as a big 12 to 24-inch snowfall, but we still expect near average snowfall in the month of December this year. The cold pattern maintains into at least early January, and we're monitoring intraseasonal patterns and teleconnections for what lies beyond. Again, it's 5 to 6 weeks long-range lead, and that's it. That's all we need to do. But if you did that and you stayed within that, within yourself there, and didn't try to project months ahead, you would have known that December probably was not going to be as warm as everybody thought it was going to be. And there's been a little bit too much placed on this east-based strong El Nino talk across the board. It's becoming more basin-wide, not quite there yet, but it's very close. It'll become more basin-wide, and once that does, the best convection can hang out here as long as the best sea surface temperatures are in that area, and we can see that on the actual sea surface temperature areas. There's a big blob right here of 30 degrees Celsius water sitting right near the international date line. That's your phase 7, phase 8, phase 1 periods. In winter, that's good for the Magellan Oscillation to be in these phases. And guess where convection likes to hang? It likes to hang where the warmest water is, right? It doesn't matter what the anomalies are. It likes to hang where the highest ocean heat content is, and that's going to be right in here where it's warmest. As long as it stays here and it doesn't start drifting this way, it will be most of the convection will be right in the middle of that circle there, which is phases 7, 8, and 1 of the Magellan Oscillation. So we'll continue to follow that going forward. We're going to wrap this up here. Again, not a lot to talk about here yet until we get into our storm signal period. It might be something we can discuss next week, see if that's still there, or if the models actually have something for that period in my theorized period when the NAO is relaxing. But if not, we'll look at the next storm signals and keep going from there. But I do think December will finish with near average snowfall and near to slightly below average temperatures. I'm EPA meteorologist Bobby Marchus. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 26th. Take care.